What can almost immediately kill you that most people don't know of? A dead tree branch caught in the tree canopy. They call them widowmakers. I'm a very experienced outdoorsman. My father was a survival trainer for the military, and my whole family are rural dwellers. The number of times I've seen people choose a perfect campsite without ever having looked up is staggering. I'm a reasonably experienced camper, and now I'm ashamed to admit I've never looked up and assessed for this, only for potential rain and wind cover. Thanks for teaching me something, stranger. You should look up the signs of a dying tree. Will change how you look at the forest. Things like the top having fallen off or branches up high having broken off even before you get there is a bad sign. Big holes that aren't healing is any good. Worst of all is seeing mushrooms growing on a tree. Mushrooms mean that tree is already decaying. That tree could fall down today or in 10 years. Every couple of years. Gum trees here in Australia drop a branch on some poor unfortunate soul asleep in their tent. Gum trees here go on a boom-bust water consumption cycle where after a huge rain, they suck up as much as they can in preparation for the next dry period, which can include sucking up so much water that a dried-out branch can't handle the weight of it all and fall down. Is there anything in Australia that doesn't want to kill you? Mick Taylor sounds like the least dangerous thing in that country. Some of the sheep haven't evolved venom glands and a hatred for humanity yet. Actually, in Australia, gum trees can randomly drop large branches, and while it is rare that anyone is hit by them, there is no warning. I've had a few close calls myself, just walking past a tree and a branch drops behind me, and friends have had their cars crushed or had a branch land on a house. Smoke inhalation in a house fire can kill you in as little as 2 minutes. It is extremely important that you get as low as possible when evacuating your home to minimize your exposure. Most people know that smoke is dangerous, but they don't realize that you can die from inhaling it in such a short period of time. I'd like to add to this something that most people don't realize. In a real house fire, smoke isn't just smoke. It's a mixture of superheated gases. Inhaling smoke in a house fire isn't just uncomfortable, like when the wind changes while you're sitting around a campfire. It will literally burn your airway, causing it to swell shut. If you stand up and take one breath in an area where the thermal layer has banked down low enough, you're done. Make sure you have working smoke alarms, and if you have to evacuate during a fire, stay low. I had a house fire when I was 18. I was home alone when it happened and could see the smoke everywhere, but I couldn't find the fire. I went outside to find the fire, and sure enough, the entire roof and back of the house was on fire. I ran back in to grab my pet mouse, but it was so smoky, I couldn't get him. Hours later, a fireman came out of the house with a mask over the mouse's face. I knew him, so he was playing around. My mouse survived hours in a house fire. It still gives me goosebumps. His cage was on the ground, likely the reason he survived. Poor bugger coughed up soot for weeks, but he lived another 3 years after. Edit to correct house to mouse. You are simultaneously idiotic and so endearing for running into a burning building for your mouse. Lol. I did it for my neighbor's dog. My dad was pissed at me for risking my life that way. I lost my wife in a house fire for this very reason. I hope nobody experiences this, but if it happens, please, get down. Plan for what to do if you're ever in this situation. Things like this should be planned like we plan our retirement. I wish we had that conversation. My wife would still be alive. I'm so sorry for your loss. My house burned down last month. I think the only reason I made it out with both of my children unharmed is because a few weeks before the fire, I had a dream that our house was on fire. When I woke up that day, I spent all morning reading about how to plan to escape in a fire. If I hadn't had that dream and looked into how to plan for that emergency, I might be telling a much worse story right now. The greatest irony of it all is that I had ordered fire blankets just days before the fire, but they didn't arrive until the day after. Reminds me of the 1980 Saudia Flight 163. It made a successful landing despite pilot errors, but the cargo was on fire and they didn't evacuate as fast as possible. Everyone in that plane died, but it was mostly due to CO poisoning. Not that it will immediately kill you, but I learned about people stranded in snowstorms, let's say on the highway, who don't know. You need to keep snow clear of your tailpipe or it will start filling the car with carbon monoxide. I randomly learned about it reading a novel and had no idea. And now every few years I read about a death because of it. Hijacking this to give advice for getting stuck in snowstorms. First, do not run your car for a long time if you're stuck in the snow. Not just because you can die from carbon monoxide, but also because you need to conserve gas. Instead, run your car for an hour at a time at most to heat up the interior. Charge your phone and listen to the radio to get updates. Second, keep trying your cell phone. Call 911 over and over again, even if you don't have service. Your phone will connect to other towers if they're available. If it's a 911 call, keep calling. There's a chance your call will go through. When your car isn't running, get out and clear snow away from the air intake, usually the front grille area and the exhaust. Make sure there's a clear path for both. If your intake gets clogged, your engine will die and you won't be able to start your car again. If your exhaust gets clogged, you can die from carbon monoxide poisoning. If you have a CB radio, don't stop transmitting your location and asking for help. You're much more likely to find someone via radio than via phone, especially if you don't have phone service. Finally, stay with your vehicle. A car is a lot easier to spot in the snow than a person. While you're not running the engine, run your hazards if you hear activity nearby. Blinking lights on a car-sized object will draw attention to you, so will honking the horn if you hear people nearby. Not to mention your car is your lifeline for heat, shelter, and information via the radio. The only reason you should leave your car if you're stuck during a snowstorm is if there's an immediate threat to your life. Read this whole thing, then remembered I live in Hawaii. I imagine that almost the exact opposite advice would apply to a lava flow near your car. Not entirely. They actually recommend you keep your tailpipe and grille clear of lava too. Yep, I live in Buffalo and there was a severe storm over Christmas 3 years ago. I think it was around 40 people died, many of them from this, or just exposure from being stranded and running out of gas, or trying to get out of their car and walk to shelter. So many people lost their loved ones 2 days before Christmas. Fucking terrible. I was driving back to NY through that area during this storm, but my car couldn't really make it, so I decided to stop for the night in Erie Park and just find the cheapest hotel possible for the night. The night sucked seriously. Do not stay at the Quality Inn off exit 18 in Erie. There were roaches crawling around the room. But I'm glad I stopped because I later found out that a good number of people had crashed just past the PAR-NY border and were stuck there for days just in their cars. Rotating machinery will grab any loose article of clothing and pull you in and turn you into a smoothie. Lathes are utterly terrifying, as anyone who has seen that video will agree. Listen to me, good? If you see someone go into a confined, poorly ventilated space and they don't come out, do not go in after them. If there's some sort of toxic chemical buildup, it'll knock you out long before you get a chance to help the other person. I've heard multiple stories where 4 or 5 people died because they kept following each other into septic pits and whatnot. Toxic gas buildup can get you very, very quickly. Firefighter here can confirm. People die this way somewhat regularly. Not super often, but more than you'd think. Industrial tanks, vats, caves, train cars, etc. Ship holds. The steel rusts and absorbs all the oxygen. People climb in. Even worse is that you don't detect the lack of oxygen. You breathe just fine. Your CO2 levels don't build up because the air is mostly nitrogen. You take normal breaths but aren't getting any oxygen. You don't notice anything is wrong. The next second you get dizzy, and before you can figure out why, you've blacked out. If you are very lucky, someone knows you are in an enclosed space and has a team on standby to get you out and revive you. In the overwhelming majority of cases, you are dead before anyone even knows what's happening, and you are lucky if you die alone that day. Honestly, that sounds like the best least painful way to go. There's a training video they like to use of a crew in NYC who were working in some old tunnels. The boss goes down to scope the work out. A while later, his son comes looking for him, assumes he's down in the pipes, but he gets no reply when he shouts for him. Another workmate comes along and goes down. As he disappears from sight, he goes quiet. Another worker comes over and goes down. He freaks out when he sees the worker passed out not far from the ladder and then goes quiet pretty fast as well. Pipe was filled with gas. They only had a few seconds to get out before they passed out. Wine industry here. Every harvest you hear about a handful of workers going to dig out a tank and not coming back out. Scares TF out of me. Mixing different cleaning products, as in products for bathrooms, floors and stuff. Some of these contain very aggressive shit, and some of it does indeed react with each other on a chemical basis. Especially bleach is a no-no for mixing. Chlorine gas is easier to accidentally create than you probably think. And if you don't realize what you've just done, you could be dead a lot quicker than you wanted to be. A clean bathroom won't help you then. Yep, many decades ago, my mum almost killed herself cleaning. She'd mixed ammonia and bleach because she used two different cleaning products. All the metal in the bathroom turned green from the gas. Thankfully, my dad was home. She has, somehow, still managed to come close to mixing them more than once since then. She still uses bleach to clean. I cannot stand the smell of bleach, makes me feel sick, and I refuse to use it for any cleaning. I once was cleaning my bathroom with a few different chemicals, one of which was bleach. I'm pretty sure I fainted at some point because I woke up on the ground and I had no reason to be sleeping on the floor. I cleaned up cat urine with bleach once and passed out. Didn't consider the ammonia in the urine. Pulmonary embolism. Girlfriend came to visit after work and said she wasn't feeling well. I made some soup, gave her cold medicine, watched her favorite show with her, and sent her home to rest. Got a call from one of our friends the next morning saying she had died in the night. My mother, an RN, told me they're very difficult to spot and can kill very quickly. But years later, I'm still occasionally frustrated with myself. She was dying and I made her soup. Anyway, hug the things you love. Sorry for your loss. Thank you for sharing that. There is absolutely nothing you could have done differently. You made her feel loved and comfortable when she felt unwell. Don't be too hard on yourself. Hey, thanks. I figured and kinda hoped my comment would be buried. I understand that. There's no way I could have known. And I've mostly made peace with that. Grief memories can creep up in unexpected ways though, like a random Reddit post. My daughter died of a pulmonary embolism last year. She felt nauseous and then collapsed. She was gone before the paramedics got there. She was only 24 and my baby. No symptoms before her being nauseated. Edit, she passed from a clot in her leg and her autopsy revealed she had the more dangerous type of Factor V Leiden. Factor V Leiden is a genetic mutation that increases the risk of blood clots, particularly deep vein thrombosis DVT and pulmonary embolism PE. I want to spread awareness. The heterozygous one parent or the more dangerous homozygous both parents. She had the second one. I just had no idea her father had it too. I was in the process of getting her tested since I have it, but doctors and insurance were being difficult. If you have decent insurance and a decent doctor and a relative who's had a DVT blood clot in their leg or a pulmonary embolism, it's worth checking into. She was dying and I made her soup. Neither of you knew. To be made soup with loving intentions by somebody you cherish is a wonderful thing. Her last experience with you was one of kindness and comfort, and that is the most any of us could hope for. Yeah, carbon monoxide is big one. It's scary because you can't see or smell it. A faulty furnace or water heater can fill your house with it while you're sleeping, and you just never wake up. Always good to have a working CO detector. This is going to sound insane because it is, but when my oldest child was 1 year old, I had to call the fire department because I thought our furnace was leaking. Every time the heater would come on, my eyes would start watering and burning. At first, the landlord said it was just dust burning off, but after 3 days it was still happening. Always, whenever the heater came on. So I got tired of calling the landlord and reached out to the local fire department to come out and test, and sure enough, we had carbon monoxide throughout our little two-bedroom apartment. They forced the landlord to repair it before they shut them down. My son's bedroom vent was right about his crib, so I'm always extremely thankful that my body knew something was wrong. Good call. And for those who may find themselves in a similar situation, never hesitate to call your local fire department for anything, but especially CO worries. They'd rather show up, check their monitors, hand you a couple free CO detectors and call it a night, knowing a family is safe. Even if you think it was silly to waste their time rather than they show up on the worst day for everyone involved, themselves included, knowing it could have been prevented with a phone call. Those in the fire service hold their creed close to protect life and property, and are here to serve their community in any time of need. I'm an HVAC tech. The amount of customers that get pissed at us for condemning their furnace for carbon monoxide leaks is crazy. I get the same thing too, but my response is, could be worse. You could not wake up tomorrow morning. Yeah, if you're a warrior, just go ahead and skip this thread. Thanks. I actually needed this comment. Snapped me out of a doom scroll. Cone snails. So many people see a pretty seashell, pick it up, feel a tiny pinch that they don't think much of, and then die. There is no antidote, and the best anyone can do is make sure you're out of the water. It causes paralysis, so a lot of people die by drowning and keep you breathing long enough for your body to metabolize it as best as it can. It's going to be hideously painful the entire time, though, if you make it through. And you're probably going to end up with a lot of pain for a very long time and never quite be the same after. Edit, I get it, so many seems like way too much for how rarely it actually happens. But for how out of nowhere it seems like. Even just a few seems like a lot. People walk on beaches and pick up shells every day without thinking about how it could be their last and have no idea it could be dangerous at all. If someone's use of so many is your hill to die on, may I suggest going outside, getting some fresh air, touching grass, maybe heading to the beach and picking up a few seashells. My uncle found one of these shells on a family trip to Vietnam. Luckily it was empty, but we found out later that that shell was from the cigarette snail, a nickname given to it because the only thing you'll have time to do when it stings you is have a cigarette before you die. Where do these things live so I can avoid with extreme prejudice? Unfortunately, they can show up on almost any tropical beaches or anywhere that has warm enough water. So you really want to know what the shells look like and not pick up anything that you don't recognize, which is a good rule to live by anyway. Some of them can even tolerate cooler waters, and can show up as far north as Southern California. Occasional diver here, it is indeed a rule we consider cardinal if you don't know what it is. Do not touch it. Ah, I understand. Just do the opposite of what every character does in every alien movie. What? Just because I'm on an alien planet with totally unknown life forms, I'm supposed to keep my dumb helmet on and not touch the vagina? Snake? I once went to Australia to visit some friends that had emigrated there. One day we went to the beach to chill out, fish, and have lunch. The tide went out and the exposed beach was covered in loads of little snails. Without thinking about it, I reached out to pick one up and my friend's dad bellowed at me to stoop. He explained that they were cone snails. They won't bother you if you run around. Even step on them. I can't remember if we had shoes on or not, but whatever we do not try and pick them up. So yeah, that could have been it for me. I got a bacteria in my foot about 3 months ago, which went into my bloodstream and got into my heart. I died in the OR and had to be revived before a 10-hour surgery to replace and repair 3 heart valves and a large hole in my heart. 3 weeks in ICU, 2 weeks in cardio ward. After that, don't let little infections become big infections. I had no idea this was happening in my body. But on the 3rd day of not getting out of bed cause I was so tired, we called 911. Infection is the wider answer here. A tooth infection can do everything I've just described. Jesus Christ. I died in the OR and thought this was a shitpost at first. Just cause the dude resuscitated, no need to start calling him Jesus Christ, man. Diving head first. It can kill immediately if you misjudge the water depth, or cause permanent full body paralysis. My friend had this happen and is now seriously disabled to the point she has difficulty speaking and walking. Side note is that she's constantly being hit on and creeped on by guys that think she's also mentally disabled. It's crazy just how often she'll wait outside a shop and I come out and some weird guy is bothering her. She dived into a pool on holiday and her life was never the same. Happened to the older sibling of someone I knew. Broke a neck and he died a few hours later. Terrible tragedy. The family made the most of it via organ donation and his death helped a lot of very ill people. But that's a meager silver lining. In Chicago we have lots of beaches and some with huge rocks and boulders on the shore. I have seen a few people in wheelchairs that jumped into the lake and paralyzed themselves. You are one day a goofy 20-something partying on the lake and then you have no legs. Forever. Don't jump into water you can't see. I thought at first you meant they got up from their wheelchair to jump in and then further paralyzed themselves. Was very confused. I work as a lifeguard and had to yell at an older man in about his 50s for doing this in 3 feet deep water at our lap pool. When I was explaining it to him, all he could say was, "I've been doing this longer than you've been alive, Sonny." Then he dove in while I was still speaking to him. In that moment, all I wanted to do was walk away and hope he learned the hard way. But my manager and I could only explain the danger to him and leave it at that. Some people just don't have brains. which explains why they don't realize the danger in this activity. I once had a boss tell me heat stroke is just too expected with this job. I quit on the spot. Good decision. I was self-employed and absolutely loved what I did, so just kept plodding along. I took all the necessary precautions, but it started happening so often that my brain just said, nope, I'm out. If I'd known then what I know now, I'd have quit a whole lot sooner. While not immediately, most people don't know that infection from a toothache could possibly kill you if allowed to spread unchecked. This happened to me. I had a bad cavity and got it filled. Then, over the next couple of months, I developed osteomyelitis in my jawbone. It threw the whole bone. The doctors kept saying I had TMJ. Finally, they caught it. I don't think TMJ makes it look like a ping pong ball is in your cheek. That shit was fucking painful. Couldn't even talk. Blue-ringed octopus. They are one of the most venomous animals alive, and they can kill you within 15 minutes. A tiny tear in your aorta, it can rupture with zero warning. Yep, a friend of mine survived years of addiction, straightened out his life, and was a month away from his wedding when he dropped dead from an aortic rupture. He was in the kitchen, and his fiancée heard him say her name. She said he sounded like he was in pain. She turned around and saw blood coming from his mouth, and his eyes went dead. He was dead before he hit the floor. Holy shit. I'm sorry about your friend. That must have been absolutely traumatic for his fiancée. My grandfather died that way. He was a doctor. He woke up my grandmother one night and said, I think my aortas just split. Goodbye, my love. He was dead shortly afterwards. Imagine knowing what's coming and using those precious seconds to say goodbye to the person you love. It is very weird to know something is happening with your body, being completely aware of all the symptoms and not being able to do anything about it. As a medic and then a phlebotomist, I've seen plenty of people have vasovagal reactions because of blood or other injuries. So when it happened to me, I have a very weird relationship with seeing blood. It was the smallest droplet welling up from getting staples removed. It was like I was sitting in a chair in my brain, watching my body shut down. The tunnel vision, the stars, the heat, the sweating based on the text reaction, the paleness. And I was literally just thinking, could you be a bigger bitch right now? That is the smallest drop of blood. No matter that, my mind seemed totally fine and functional. I couldn't stop it or think my way out of it. Sometimes knowledge is not power. My stepfather survived that. He just happened to be in the emergency room at the time. Many operations later, he was moving around again. He died a few years later when several other blood vessels ruptured on him. It is a flaw in his family, and at the point he was in his early 50s and the oldest person his family ever had. His kids died in their 40s from the same thing. I've had multiple healthy young men come in for chest pain SOP quick onset, usually after working out, and they have been dissections. A few were able to be saved, but not all of them. Unfortunately, it's a true medical emergency. How can we avoid that happening? How does it happen? Sometimes it's genetic or associated with connective tissue disorders. My brother has an aortic aneurysm that he has to get checked every 6 months. He also has Marfan syndrome. I believe if it gets to a certain size they do a surgery to repair, but it's dangerous so they prefer to monitor if they can. Edit, not Martian syndrome. Also, farm animals, horses, cows, things that look harmless and cuddly, but once they decide you're not allowed in their space can turn deadly in a heartbeat. Their massive body weight alone is a pretty decent defense mechanism. Cows do like to trample things. Alongside the flexibility of a horse's legs, for example. There's a lot of dumb ways to die from cute farm animals. Was trampled by a horse 8 years ago. My life is literally separated into before the accident and after the accident. I had a friend who had a pet cow. The first time she introduced me, we jumped over the fence, and as soon as her cow saw her, she started running so fast. I told her that it wasn't going to stop and we needed to run. I ran. She stayed there, and this cow came to a skidding stop just in time. In that moment, I knew a cow could easily kill. They were best friends, but that was terrifying. Yeah, I had that kind of relationship with my house. Yak. She didn't get to full size, but she loved being carried as a calf. And as she got older, it got a little harder. I had that kind of relationship with my house. Yak. Taking your eyes off the road, especially if you're on the highway. Power lines. They are not the same as your outlets or extension cords. Sleeping with your phone connecting to a charger under your pillow. Had a friend get sent to the air as their phone overheated and the battery exploded right under their face. It was bad as they had shrapnel of the battery enter into the left side of the brain. That could have severed veins in the brain. Had to go into emergency room to remove the shrapnel in the brain along with some in their ear and neck. Doctors told them one piece was less than a quarter from the jugular as well, so they were literally close to death. Best practice is to place your phone and charger away from you, preferably on a nightstand or table and not in your bed. Edit. I've read a lot of comments on this one and also want to point out in general from some comments mixing anything electrical with water is also something to be aware about. Never use anything that is electrical near water. This isn't just a phone charger near a bathtub. It's anything from hair dryers to toasters and more. Water and electricity don't mix and you can literally shock yourself to death. A few years ago, I had my phone charging on my mattress by my pillow. I touched it and it was so hot that I dropped it. Also, the sheet and the mattress were warm from where the phone had been resting. Ever since then, I have placed my phone in a safe place away from cloth. It scares me how I could have started a fire. High humidity and high heat, also known as the wet bulb effect. It stops the body's natural ability to cool itself and at the upper limits of extremes can kill within hours to even minutes. The Cave of Crystals in Nica, Chihuahua, Mexico is one such place where these extremes exist. The environment is around 58°C136 with humidity of around 90–99, without specialized cooling equipment and suits. A person would die within a few minutes because they'd essentially drown in their own lungs, falling whatever way and hitting your head on a hard floor. People would be surprised how fragile the human head is. Antifreeze. Everyone knows not to consume it, but if you get a good amount of it on your skin and don't wash it off immediately, it can kill your ass. A friend of mine lost his son 2 years ago. He was repairing a truck and the radiator hose bust. He got antifreeze all over himself. Unfortunately, the place he was working on the truck didn't have any facilities to wash up, so he had to just wipe off all he could and finish up. 12 hours later, he was getting sick, and 48 hours later, he was dead. He was 42 and very healthy. His family is absolutely devastated. You'll be careful. There were some Americans stationed on a Polish base in Afghanistan. They heard they could get drunk by filtering helicopter antifreeze through a loaf of bread. They fucking died. Mixing benzodiazepines like Xanax with alcohol, since they're both sedatives, it can actually cause you to stop breathing in a relatively short time. A friend of a friend died in 2 feet of surf when he turned his back on the waves and a bigger one came out, flipped him, and slammed his head into the packed sand. Never, ever turn your back to the ocean. Never turn your back to the ocean is something I learned in my earliest years of adulthood, and it has always stayed with me. Papa's alkyl nitrates. Obviously, tons of people do them with no harm, but there is a condition called sudden sniffing death syndrome which occurs when inhalants increase one's heart rate quickly and severely enough that it immediately impacts the cardiovascular system, resulting in heart failure and death. Sudden sniffing syndrome can occur the first time you use inhalants. In other words, not worth it. I think people know you can get hurt, but a simple fall can kill you if your head hits something hard. Even if you don't fall from very high up. Lack of situational awareness. When things start to go sideways, slow down and think. Don't turn one victim into 2 or more. Take your time and act with purpose and forethought. There will be more than enough panic without you adding to it. Amniotic fluid embolisms are terrifying. It's wild how fast a person can go from alert and talking to being in cardiac arrest. It won't kill you immediately, but one of my greatest fears is getting prions. You're just fucked. No cure, no hope. Slowly, your brain will be pulled apart as you lose yourself until you die. Always. Edit. The comments have told me 2 things. The first is that maybe prions are more common and well known than I thought. The second is they are even more terrifying than I thought. A close family friend died of this last year, and within a span of 6 months he lost all memory and function and turned into a hateful person because he was scared, confused, and literally wouldn't recognize even his wife and kids. He lost the ability to walk and talk, and there was nothing anyone could do but watch it happen. He was an engineer before that. Really smart guy. By the time they realized he had something going on and went to the doctor, 30 of his brain was gone and the doctor was floored that he was still walking. The CDC wanted his body sent to them after to make sure it was disposed of properly and wouldn't contaminate anything and pass it on, but none of the airlines would fly him out and no crematories in the state would take him. They weren't allowed to just bury him. Finally, a veterinary crematory agreed to take him, and they closed down operations for the day to clean up and be as respectful as they could. Prions are literally a nightmare. Death ASNT instant, but there's no coming back from it, and the decline is quick and awful. This happened to a guy I know a couple years ago. It's like speed running Alzheimer's. What's extra terrifying is that a person can just get a spontaneous prion disease without any exposure to prions at all. Like, they're going about life all normal, and one day a protein just decides to fuck shit up and misfold.